Hello, Sally Magee here with Magee Coaching Solutions and your next lesson on this alcohol-free challenge. So today's lesson is going to pick up on where the previous one left off, and we're in the well-being module, again, based on Gallup's research on well-being at work, how to build resilient and thriving teams. So I'm going to go ahead and share the slides here. And just a quick recap that Gallup has studied more than 98% of the world's population based on over 100 million global interviews is what the cover of the book indicates. Gallup has uncovered 5 elements that people need to thrive in their lives. And so you can see them here on the screen. And I wanted to also just quickly recap that definition of thriving, right? So what we're talking about is kind of a spectrum between thriving and suffering, with struggling being in the middle. So what we want for thriving individuals, and basically human flourishing, it's all about flourishing as human beings, is where our well-being in these elements is strong, consistent, and progressing. Right? So that's our definition of thriving. What we did in the prior lesson was physical well-being. And so as a quick recap, there's the 5 elements. We covered physical already. This is the second element, social. And then we're going to pick up with the subsequent lessons on the other 3, community, career, and financial. So for social well-being, the way it's defined is that you have meaningful friendships or meaningful relationships in your life. A couple of things to think about is that we as human beings are more intrinsically motivated to do much more for our friends. That's what intrinsic motivation is that internal motivation. We're more apt to do, to stay motivated, to do work with our friends, right? So, only 1 in 4 people in the Gallup poll, in their recent poll, these are some of the statistics, would strongly agree that friends and family give positive energy every day. Only 1 in 4 would strongly agree with that statement. So I would ask you some kind of coaching questions here is to think about, do you have friends and family or colleagues that give you positive energy every day? How would you rate that question, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. And then only 10%, this is actually a big number, 10% higher profit margins in an organization. So this book, remember, is based on well-being at work. So it is kind of career-oriented or organizationally oriented. So if an organization doubled the number of people that have best friends at work, they would get 10% higher profit margins. 10% higher profit margins if people had best friends or deeper connections socially at work. So this is where if you're working with teams or own your own company, for example, you can really see the business benefit of people thriving in their lives. And it's not just thriving in career, right? This one is specifically talking about thriving in the social well-being aspect. So the chances, here's another couple of metrics for you here. The chances of you thriving double if you live with someone who's thriving, right? Now, texting and social media are only a small portion of your social interaction, right? So we can get a lot on this telephone, and we can see a lot on social media. Half of what we see isn't actually true, so just bear that in mind, right? But even texting, right? Texting with friends and family, that gives you a limited boost in your social well-being. But what we really need, what human beings need, is real human interaction. In the prior module, I mentioned, for example, can you do the walk and talk at work, right? If you have a meeting, can you take the person outside that you're meeting with and do, a walk around your building or up and down the stairs, for example, to get a little bit of that physical energy and well-being kind of incorporated into your day. But here's a couple other questions to ask yourself, and I'll just slow down here for a minute, is how do you show the people who are most important to you that you care about them? And then you can ask your team. So assuming you have some kind of team, whatever that means in your life, a team of colleagues or a sports team or anything like that? Do you spend enough social time together as a team? So if it's a work group, for example, are you all business all the time, or is there a social element to it? A best practice is to share your individual goals with your team members, again, kind of any team context, so that they can provide support. That's that social support and encouragement to help you reach those goals, right? So I wanted to share some other coaching questions. Again, these will be in the online module where you can screenshot the slide here. And I'm going to kind of slow down to give you some thinking time. Here is, deep breath. This is a good one. Do I have meaningful relationships in my life that don't revolve around drinking? That's a good one. Because as you probably will discover, typically relationships can change when alcohol is removed, whether that's with a spouse or with friends or your social network. If you are the only one not drinking, right? So that has kind of social impacts. So do you have meaningful relationships that don't revolve around drinking? That's a really important one. What options are there to make social connections with other people on this alcohol freedom journey? So this is a little bit of encouragement to attend the weekly Zooms that I'm doing. I'm going to go forward after this particular running of this program with some monthly Zooms. So anyone who is participating can hop on in my various programs can hop on a Zoom because I think having social connection is super important. So aside from that, are there online platforms? I always mention the Sober Club as a great resource, or there's plenty of other social networking types of options that are out there. But what feels right to you? It's a personal decision, right? What feels right to you? But do some investigation, right? There are plenty of Facebook groups out there. My gosh. Question 3 is, how can I spend more time with a friend or colleague today? Number 4 is, who would enjoy hearing from me today? Excuse me. The next one is, how can I provide friendship and support to someone? And what can I do to show others that I appreciate them today? So again, I'm going to just kind of pause a little bit. These are some good questions to think about. And I encourage you to get out your journal and think, and then turn it to action, right? What can you do to show others that you appreciate them today? And then some best practices. I'm going to run through these here real quick. This first one sounds like a lot, but I'm going to give it some explanation here. The best practice from the book is from the research, spend 6 hours a day socializing with friends, family, and colleagues. This time includes phone, email, and other communications, whether at work or at home. Now, I kind of reframe this as spending 6 hours a day with people. Right? So if you're at work, you have colleagues that you're spending time with. Is it a Zoom connection where you're on Zoom meetings or on Teams for other, for business connections? But 6 hours a day is a pretty large number. And remember, this kind of ties back to one of the common drinking triggers of loneliness. And this is how we can start to think about, how can we fill some of that loneliness time by boosting up our social well-being. Next one is getting to know your colleagues. This could be friends, family, colleagues, personal hobbies and interests. So you can bond a little bit better socially with other people, get to know them a little bit better. Create opportunities for people to learn about one another within their work and their personal lives. So what kind of opportunities might be out there that you can get to know your colleagues or your friends and family a little bit in a little bit different manner? I guess that's the gist of this question, right? Another best practice is take a long walk with a friend. If you don't have a friend nearby, but you've got one, phone a friend. You've got one on a phone, you can schedule a phone date and I do this all the time. I take my dog for a walk and I get on the phone with a girlfriend and just chat while I'm out there walking. So it's multiple elements of well-being all at once. And that's that last one, mixing social time with physical activity, right? So some of our mission here is really building new habits that don't revolve around drinking, right? So if a lot of your social activity revolves around drinking, how can you start to incorporate new ideas to be thriving in a social aspect if your social time, you're starting to revolve, if it is starting to evolve, so it's not revolving around drinking and alcohol, right? So those are some best practices. And then last slide, and I will wrap it up here today, is this was in a previous lesson, the need for human connection. And it's an excerpt from the video was a TED Talk, but down below the video was an excerpt from Laura McCowan's second book, Push Off From Here, The 9 Essential Truths. I just wanted to make sure that this wasn't skipped over. And what she recommends is her book is very recovery oriented. So she talks a lot about having a recovery routine, but a weekly routine of connection she recommends, and she is super smart, totally respect her opinion here, but this is her recommendations, is at least one voice-to-voice conversation. Texting doesn't count. Either on the phone or in person is even better. And she says, she encourages people, if you don't have their phone number, then what's your plan to make those connections? So she's giving us a homework assignment here. If you don't have the phone number of someone else that's doing this journey, and it could be mine, which is fine, then that's the homework, is what's your plan to make the connection? At least one other person that knows what you're going through, has been there perhaps before you, or is a little bit farther ahead of you, or maybe you're doing this together in a partnership, right? But at least having one person that you can reach out to. She also shares, joining an online support group or attending a meetup. You can put in there also that maybe you're looking for someone in your time zone. That could be really helpful to have people like in your current time zone area. And then lastly, she says, while friends and family and colleagues, they may want to be supportive, which is great. We all really need people that understand what you're going through, because we've gone through it ourselves, right? So there is definitely a different connection that you make with people who are sober, who have done or are in the midst of a sobriety journey, right? So going alcohol free, and the connection is just a little bit different. I'm just going to put it like that. So with that, I will wrap up today's lesson and stop sharing. And yeah, so we're going to pick up with the next 3 of career, financial, and community coming up. So log back in, same place, same channel, and we'll keep going through the 5 elements of well-being. All right, and we will see you soon.